Curtis Sherrod, and welcome to Curtis Sherrod's Top 3.
Marilyn.J.Johnson has starred in the national touring company of The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Alex Smith, as well as the Broadway company with Carlin Glenn. She had a starring role in Bubbling Brown Sugar in Europe and the national tour. She was also featured in productions of Jamaica, Guys and Dolls, and The King and I. Miss Johnson has appeared at Carnegie Hall, Town Hall, and with Duke Ellington at the Music Hall. An international nightclub performer, she has headlined some of the most sophisticated clubs in New York, San Juan, Sydney, Australia, and St. Martin. She recorded The Dream on the cast album for Roulette Records, which led to the movie theme for the United Artists film, The Way We Live Now. She also recorded Skusa Kusa on the Zan Z label. She can also be seen in the movies City Hall with Al Pacino and the John Cassavetes film, Opening Night. On television, she has appeared on the CBS series Palmerstown, USA, and on the Merv Griffin Show. Ms. Johnson is currently the president and CEO of Lindsay Unlimited Inc. and her publishing company, Markham. She is in post-production for her highly anticipated documentary, Sister Soldier, which chronicles the contributions of African-American women in the military from World War II to the Gulf War. Ms. Johnson has over 40 years in the acting community and is still going strong. I want to give a top 3 round of applause to the Renaissance Queen sitting next to me. All right, first I salute and I can't genuflect, but I bow, you know. And thanks for coming on the show. How are you today?
I'm fine, and thank you very much.
And so what intrigued me when I first read your bio and saw the trailer to the film is what a fascinating, unsung subject matter, in particular in these times that we live in now, to give props to the first female black soldiers who have contributed so much. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, the inspiration came when I was doing Bubbling Brown Sugar in Chicago at the Schubert Theater, and some of the women from a unit had come to see the show, and we were invited to a carrier that was going to give out medals. And I was surprised at how many African-American women were there from a unit, but when we went to the ship, there were like quite a few, and I'm like, wow, where did they all come from? Because I had a cousin that was a WAC in World War II, and I didn't believe that she was really in the Army.
Wait. So your cousin is like, I'm in the service, and you're like, you know, she be lying.
Exactly. Because the thing of it is that I'd never seen any black women in the newsreels that I would see at the movies, and they would show about, you know, what was happening during World War II. And you would see all of these nurses and females that were white, and I'm like, where's my cousin? And so when she came to visit and she had this uniform on, I'm looking at it and trying to figure out, did she cut off some pants and make a skirt? And her shoes that were so shiny, I could see my face in them almost. And I kept saying, I just don't believe she's in the service. And so it was during the show of Bubbling that I was able to really see all of these units of women, and I wanted to know more. And so I was invited by a couple of them to have lunch. And so I sat down with them, and they brought their scrapbooks with pictures from France and the different countries that they had been in. And I'm like, why don't we know more about you? And so I told them, I said, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do a documentary. And they looked at me and they started laughing, because here I am, this singing, dancing lady on stage talking about being a film producer. And I started asking, you know, getting information through just different people that I knew had been in the service. And so there was a gentleman, Chris Mapp, that I had worked with, and he was wonderful as far as putting a show together. And I asked him would he help me, and he's been with me from day one.
Wow.
And so we started getting information of different female soldiers that had been in different parts of the,
Was it difficult to get footage and information that was relevant?
Well, it was, but thankfully with colleges and the National Archives, and then the stories that the women are telling themselves. I couldn't write this. I could never put it together as well as they have been able to tell. And so basically they tell the story, it's not me. And so another young lady that my daughter knew from college worked in a law office, and it was the law office of W. Roundtree, who was in World War II. And she was also a lawyer for the first Rosa Parks. There was a black female that got on the bus, I think, in Georgia, and she had her uniform on, and they told her to sit in the back.
With her United States military uniform on.
Yep. And so they brought a suit against the bus company because they had asked her to move, and she wouldn't. In fact, there's a whole story on her by itself.
Well, speaking of stories, you're a story unto yourself, though. I mean, yeah, when I was singing here, and then when I was dancing here, and, I write lyrics, and I write gospel songs, and I'm working on a documentary. You are truly a Renaissance woman.
Yeah.
And so let's this is what I'm curious about. Duke Ellington? You actually knew the Duke?
Yes.
Tell me about, what a classy, well-dressed, sophisticate. And tell me about working with him and how that happened. Duke Ellington.
Well, it was a concert that was going to be at the Public Music Auditorium in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, which is my home.
Oh, okay.
And I had done a concert there before with my trio. And then I was asked to come back and to be on the show with Duke. It was separate because I had my own segment, but it was on the same billing. And it was called A Duke Meets a Duchess. And I was like floored. And when I met him,
Did the knees get weak? Did the knees get weak?
Yes. I mean, his look was just so overwhelming. And then the way he focuses his attention just directly on you. And it could be a room full of people and you feel it's just the two of you alone. And he listened to, just the conversation that we had was about music, of course. But it was such a pleasure just being on the same billing. And I've had the pleasure of working with some really big names, like Cab Calloway was one of my leading men in Bubbling Brown Sugar, Billy Daniels.
See, you're gonna mess around, maybe add this to Black History Month, All right, keep going.
Black Magic, I mean, we did that in Atlantic City. And I've worked Vegas, the Desert Inn.
So out of all the places that you've performed,
yes,
give me your top three. Give me your top three favorite places that you've performed at.
Oh, wow. I would say Paris, France, at the Théâtre de Paris.
Wait, you said that all night. Yeah, I was at Paris, Yeah, I was at the T-Connection with Pookie and them.
And Sydney, Australia.
Okay.
That was at the South Sydney Junior Rugby Leagues Club. And London, England. That was the last show that I actually did. Was at the Aldwych Theatre in the West End. And they were just fantastic places.
So as a young person, was being a performer something you knew you were destined to be?
I didn't feel I was destined. I always wanted to. When I was a kid, a little youngster, my dream was to be a ballet dancer.
So you were a multiple threat.
Well, I had seen Maria Tallchief on the front of the Sunday magazine, entertainment magazine, and here was this Indian woman that was a prima donna with a feather in her hair. And I'm like, wow, if she could be a prima ballerina, why can't I? So I studied ballet for 7 years. I studied at the Cleveland Ballet Russe. I was the only little black kid in the whole group. And I couldn't get a part if I bought it, if I wanted to buy it. And there just were no parts for a black female at the time. And so after I was sort of disappointed with that. I taught for 2 years to underprivileged children, and it was just a great experience working with young people. And so after that, I was always singing. I mean, I was singing even from a little kid.
And you knew you had a voice, or did
No,
people
I
tell you
didn't.
you could sing?
No, I was told to shut up. I mean, I would start singing in the bathroom, in the shower, you know, wherever. And even when I first came to New York, my next door neighbors, when I was rehearsing or trying to do my vocal scales, they would say, "Shut up that noise over there." And I would just be, ah. And finally got a very fantastic vocal teacher, Vera Maisel. And she worked with the New York Opera singers. So I had an opportunity to rehearse with Robert Marrow. And she brought out a sound that I didn't know I had. And I sang from her studio all the way home, just walking up Broadway, because I'm like, wow, this has always been inside.
And you didn't even know.
And I didn't know it, and I couldn't wait to just start singing. And the first gig I got was in Westchester, the Sandrock Country Club, and I changed my whole lineup.
What year was this?
1967.
Okay, was that Kennedy? No, that was Lyndon B. Johnson was probably president. Okay.
Yeah, right. And when I got to the club, I looked at the lineup that my vocal coach had given me, and I'm like, no, this is not what I really want to start with. And I was supposed to open up with Clear Day, and I'm like, no. So the musicians were standing there waiting to see what I'm going to line up. And I said, I'm going to open with You're Going to Hear From Me. And they looked at me and they said, you can't open with a ballad. And I said, I'm going to open with this one.
Watch me.
I said, and I want to talk the opening, and then when I give the signal, zoom in and open up the light.
Oh, you were bringing all the theatrics. See, I got to get some dap on that. You was bringing it. Okay.
And I told him, I said, put the spotlight just on my mouth, and then when I give the cue, open it up. And so the first line was, everyone tells me to know my place. That ain't the way I play. Why am I daring to show my face? 'Cause I've got something to say. Bam! Then I went into Move Over, Son. And so that was the beginning.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. So I've noticed that you've danced, you've sung, you've done the acting thing. How did that happen? How did you get into, you know?
Well, I was working in between gigs. I always had me a little temp job. And so I was working at a company and got a call from my vocal coach, and he said they're auditioning for the national tour of Bubbling Brown Sugar. And why don't you come and audition for it? And I said, well, what part? And he said, for the ingenue, which was a younger role. So I went to see the show and the dancing, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. But I'm looking at the leading lady, who was Josephine Premise at the time on Broadway. And I'm like, that's the role I would really like. Because she had the boa and the gowns, and I'm like, yeah, that's the one I want. And so when I got home, I was telling my daughter, I said, I don't know if I can do this. And she said, Mom, you can do it. She's been my greatest supporter in everything that I thought I couldn't do.
Nothing like family, right?
Oh, nothing like a daughter. I mean, she's like the ultimate.
I've met her before, and yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and if I had to put an order in, I couldn't get a better order.
Well, I got an order, though.
Yes.
I'm putting in. We're going to conclude this segment. I'm going to have you come back once the documentary drops.
Okay.
We're going to have you come back.
I would love
but
that.
I want to end this segment with song. Is there any way you could grace us with something?
Oh, wow, I'm not really in vocal shape.
It could be just a lyric, just one little lyric that we could savor.
Does it take a storm? Yes, we have been warned. Does it take a storm to bring us together? That's enough.
Welcome to Top 3, and it doesn't take us a storm to get together. We could just have amazing talent. We're going to have her come back because it's an amazing thing to look at, to listen to people who have been through the storm and have still persevered. We'll be back real soon with our next guest on Top 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.